Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 16 of the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We cannot thank you enough for tuning in this Monday evening, 1 minute past the top of the hour, 8:01 p.m. Eastern Time. We welcome to everyone here John Thompson, the Rockland, now New York Boulders, brand ambassador, John Thompson, ladies and gentlemen. And let's not forget the Rockland Community College, the voice of their basketball team. They are named the Hawks. Johnny, how are you, buddy? How are you, my friend?
Good evening, Joe, and good evening to all your listeners out there. And thanks for having me on. It's a beautiful Monday evening. Excited that you chose me for episode number 16. So
stop it. Listen, I'm always going to choose you. I'm really happy that you're here. I can't thank you enough for being here, amidst everything. It's a lot going on here this evening. And, everything going on in the world right now between the pandemic and the other things going on. Johnny, how are you and your mom handling quarantine right now?
Well, we're doing good. I'm staying in shape. I'm working out on the deck. I'm working out on the treadmill. And as I'm sure we'll get into later, I have cerebral palsy. So it's very, very important that I stay in shape. So I'm doing my best I can to stay in shape, and just hoping and praying that everybody's going to come through this okay and we can all be together again soon.
Absolutely. And, I got to tell you, that makes one of us in terms of staying in shape. That's for sure. I'm going to have to join you one of these days once all of these restrictions lift and become something of the past, if you will. So really, really good stuff to hear. Love your mother, Margaret. Really, really good stuff. So it's going to be good things for the rest of, I would say, the next hour or hour and a half, however long Johnny Thompson likes to talk, because I know that is John's passion, is to chat. Let's get into it, Johnny. So we're going to basically, for those that do not know what this podcast is about, it is a byproduct of the Eastern Observer's flagship podcast, the Primetime Rundown. The Zoom interview series started following the pandemic becoming an official pandemic, and we've had all of the guests that I have made throughout my past 5 years within this sports industry. So I'm really, really happy to say that I've had not only regular people on board, but also friends. And I consider John Thompson a really close friend of mine, and I cannot thank him enough for joining me. Johnny, it was actually episode number 17. I'm way off. Not only am I way off, I'm losing it with my time, with my day. I don't know what day it is anymore, Johnny. It's brutal.
Well, it's the same day as yesterday now, if you're looking in quarantine. So you're not that far off. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, there you go. So for those that do not know, we dive into the lives of my guests to see who they are beyond their current positions at wherever school, wherever team they, whoever they work for, whatever the case may be. We're going to see who John Thompson really is this evening. 5 minutes past the top of the hour, John Thompson, Rockland Community College Hawks, public address announcer. Johnny, let's talk about how you got to Rockland Community College, because really, I'm assuming that all of the RCC community is most likely watching us. And I know, obviously, Ed Bezier, he's definitely one of the great guys who you've met and you've been proud to work with and next to for all these years. Let's hear how you got to Rockland Community College and how you got to where you are today with the RCC Hawks.
Well, I'm going to give you the abridged story because it's a long one. And first,
let's hear it.
I want to start out by thanking our first responders, doctors and nurses, for all they're doing in the pandemic, and the first responders as well. So we continue to think of you there. And so my thing with RCC started shortly after I entered there as a student. I had run into a friend at the time who I didn't know, and he says, "Hey, they're looking for a basketball PA announcer." At the time, the person who had Ed Bezier's job was a fellow by the name of Kevin Hanlon. And he said, "I think you should meet, Kevin Hanlon, Vinny Rotiliano." And the main AD, Mr. Dan Keeley, and great respect for him. He just retired, actually. So Ed Bajer is now the lead AD over at RCC. So congratulations to Ed. And then little did I know, they said, okay, we want to hear some, demo tapes. And Mr. Hanlon was generous enough to give me 2 games to spot. I had a little bit of a leg up because I had public address announced for baseball before, but I had to get my feet wet again. You can't just go behind the microphone, in my opinion, without, prep or watching what they would want. You could certainly make it your own. So by game 3, my first game was against Westchester Community College. If back in the days, way back in the days, Rich Jacobson was the head coach for the women. Mr. Bill Carisco as well was on my first game. I still have that call sheet. I would later then miss 1 game due to a reason relating to my disability. And now 105 games later, I am still going and still hoping that, they'll have me back next year. And my relationship with Ed, of course, I met him the end to the beginning of 2014 in a freezing cold weight room at RCC. And my first thought to him was, are you still going to have me back as the PA announcer? His was, well, what more do you want to do? So I told him, I just want to do what I want to do. I let him see some demo tapes because at the time he had managed the weight room. And then him and I had a chance to have a face-to-face meeting thanks to my academic advisor, Matthew Makovich at the time. And we met, and from then on, we've been working together. Ed's a man of great integrity. He's a great person, a pleasure to work for. In this business, when you're behind the microphone, some bosses don't give you the flexibility that I get. And Joey, I know you're going to get into that, but Mr. Bajer not only allows, me to express what's going on in the game, but express my emotions from the perspective of a person who just loves the game of basketball. And I'm really appreciative to Ed for all these years that we've worked together. And of course, how they honored me for my 100th game in a row against Sullivan last season was only a small token of how much I appreciate them. So it's been a long relationship. I took 2 classes at RCC for 5 years. So I had a lot of time in there, and I'm very grateful for everything he has done and continues to do for me.
The craziest part, Johnny, is that you've done 105 games, and just like that, it goes. If Ed Bajer is watching here, I remember I think it was a road trip, Johnny, that St. Francis women had gone on, and I had emailed, or actually I think I was emailed or Facebook messaged Ed Bajer, and I had said, hey Ed, are you guys doing anything, for John? And he said, yeah, I think so. He's like, but let me get back to you. And I know, like I said, Ed, if you're watching, I know you didn't do it on purpose, but you didn't get back to me. And, it's okay. It's okay. Like I said, if you're watching, it's all, it's all fun and it's all fun. But, again, just to see the pictures, Johnny, and I know I told you congratulations multiple times, and I'll say it again on air. Congratulations for calling 3 triple-digit games, because with a lot of the obstacles that you've had to go through your entire life to be able to be behind the microphone for 100+ games at the college level is a true honor, because there are people that never get the opportunity to call 1 game, let alone 105 and counting. It really is an honor. And for those that do not know how Johnny and myself met, I think I'd like to have John Thompson tell that story, because I think that is a really, really cool one. And on top of it, it just shows how small this world is.
All right, so here we go. Nassau Community College Lions versus Rockland Hawks. Big game at the time. We got Julius DeFries on the team, Sal Barbetto, probably, and ironically, we ended up being right, a matchup that would happen again in the playoffs. Little did we all know it would be in the championship game. I see this young looking fellow with these, the microphone around him, and I was happy. I was
Young
happy,
looking fella.
I was happy. Well, you're younger than me, so you know what, you're younger.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. I have to respect my elder.
No, don't worry about it. But anybody who knows how I prep for games in the winter knows that I will get to a RCC game sometimes 2 and 3 hours before a game to prepare, to go over the names, to make sure I know who the officials are, to make sure I know who the lead official is. Because when you're presenting the game to the fans and you go on live, you can't afford to have any missteps. So if you can avoid it, you really have to at all costs. So there were 2 names, and Joe, you know them at this time, and I said, let me go up to this fella here. Maybe he knows, because sometimes I don't like to bother the coaches or whatever. So I thought our conversation was just going to be oh, it's person X, it's person Y, and then next thing I know, you and I start chatting about sports and about life and everything else. We exchange notes on our teams, and by halftime, I think we had already become Facebook friends. And then you have me as your halftime guest, and then your post game guest, and we remain friends ever since. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy that we crossed paths, because it's little meetings like that in this business you don't get to find. And it was very, very good that we crossed paths. And I did get those names correct. And I was looking at the rosters, and just to remember how long ago that was. Yancy Ulysses was on that team for Nassau. We had Nicole Yazdampita. Yeah. I'm still tripping over it. But and then AJ.
I'm sorry, Johnny.
AJ.
Because that is fantastic. But you know what, though? Listen, I'm going to tell you, Johnny, and for those that are watching, the reason why I laugh at it is because, that name I have not heard in so many years. And it brings back to this day how difficult it was. Nicole Yazdampina. She was a fantastic shooting guard, but it was crazy how, you look at it every time and you mess up, and it's not you. It is because you look at my last name and you look at Jarzynka and, it seems easy, but then you look at it and it's like Jarzynka, whatever it is, so, but
yes.
Like I said, and that's, that's the reason why, I find it hilarious that, we still to this day, 5 years later, believe it or not, that this is where we are, Johnny.
And we had, Mary Kendall on our women's team that year. We had, Olivia Neretich, obviously. We had, of course, the men. You guys had Yancy Ulysses, and we had, Sal Barbetto. And the thing about those teams back then, and Nicole was probably one of the best, and you know how many games I've called, one of the best opposing shooting guards I've ever seen come into the Eugene Levy Fieldhouse. The way she was able to not only shoot, but create shots for her teammates in terms of the opponents. I mean, wherever she is now, I hope she's doing well, but she should always know that, she made an impact on a lot of our players, because a lot of our RCC players were like, wow, that shooting guard really can shoot. And you don't see many like that at the junior college level. And she was an excellent player. So definitely one of the best that I've seen in my well over 100 games calling.
Yeah, it's crazy, and one of the games that you've called, and I wish, Johnny, I really wish that you were at the Monroe Athletic Complex in New Rochelle, in New Rock City, because that, I tell you, was probably one of the best games that I've been to this day. And I'm going to tell you this, and for those that are watching, including Johnny, I'm going to say this to you as well. I've been a part of St. John's and Duke. I've been a part of St. John's Villanova. For the first time since 1985, St. John's would beat the number one AP ranked team. And in their home building, on their home floor.
That was great.
And right. Yeah. And not only was that great, but Johnny, one of the games two of the games that I want to add onto my Mount Rushmore of collegiate games, the game where I met you, okay, back in 2015 on a cold November night.
Oh, do you remember how cold that was?
That was disgraceful. And that was probably, Johnny, one of the coldest nights that I've ever experienced.
I think if memory serves me correct, I think there was question if we were even going to play that game.
Yes.
Because it was so cold that we just nobody wanted to open the door, and I believe it was record-breaking cold.
Yes.
Back. I'm sure somebody listening along the Zoom series tonight can tell us. But I just remember one of the indelible images of that day. And Bobby Garinti comes in to help you in the post game. I mean, the guy's got a hat, like 2 or 3 scarves on, and you and I both looked at each other as like, okay, nice to meet you, but we got to go back out and battle the cold.
That's right. Yeah. And that was, and I got to tell you, just to look at those names, Johnny, Stephen Gabidian, Yancey Ulesi, Yusuf Young, the names, Jenny Pekacek for the women. Let's see who else. I'm just trying to think. Michael Tate, Kavion Green, Eric Weiner, who else? Terrell Williams. The list can continue going on. I'm just trying to think. Joe Moore, of course. Yuli Mickens, who was a redshirt, I believe, at the time, if I'm not mistaken, or he barely played. I think, and then also Kawan Bibi.
Yes.
Who else? I remember he had torn his ACL. Mark Campbell, who eventually went to go play at University of Bridgeport in the ECC D2, which we'll get to in just a moment because you now have some ties there. But also, if we can remember the little point guard, Edwin Sainville as well. That was another one in those days as well. That it's just, again, you look back on these players and you say to yourself, was that really 5 years ago? And we are coming up on 5 years, Johnny. It's 2020, a half a decade. That year when it was Rockland and it was Nassau Community College, our two alma maters. Now your current employer. And, you look back and you say to yourself, yeah, that night at Monroe Community College or at Monroe Athletic Center or complex, if you will, in New Rock City, where we were able to witness a monstrous championship game. Sal Barbetto had a career night. Edwin Sainville, Kavion Green, I think he had like almost 30 points. Something ridiculous where they eventually had moved up, but it was just wild stuff. Obviously, I wish that you were there. But, you've been doing this now, Johnny. You said for, I think it's almost, 2014. So we're rolling on 6 years.
Yeah. And, I want to mention one other fella who was in that great field of greatness, Julius DeFries.
Yes.
And if you remember, you were laughing at me because every time Julius would make a bucket, I would say, Julius DeFries puts the defense on ice. Well, somebody tapped me. The trainer tapped me on one of the timeouts. She goes, well, there might be literal ice in here. That's how cold it is. So,
yeah.
My calls, and I'm sure Joe, you'll get into it. My calls, I'm not the kind of PA announcer that just says, 3-point basket, Joey Jarzynka. But every game I go into, I treat it like it's my first, because you have to have, for the position that I'm in, you have to have appreciation for where you come from, the people that help you climb the ladder, down to, as you know, I don't drive, down to my mother who drives me back and forth all the places in the winter and summer. Never mind all the places I have to go to. All the people who come, visit me at both the Boulders and, RCC to, show how they support my career. All the players that have, touched my heart to say, it really means something when you announce my name the way you do. And I think that really speaks to, everybody says to me, you're a PA announcer for community college. I say, come look at the product, because the product is great. Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, whatever. You're looking now at an evolution of play. And these kids, I've seen it even in times I've been in the microphone. These kids are great. I mean, and they're wonderful kids to get to know. Community college is the perfect place. And I think you and I are living examples of it. It's a perfect place for somebody to go find who they are, see if they want to continue with their education. See, they get to play basketball, and then, they go on and they have a basket full, if you will, no pun intended. You know how I am for my words. They have a basket full of knowledge and confidence that when they leave those doors, they know full well what they want to do. For example, I've had fellas come up and tell me, "Oh, I'd love to play basketball in college," or, they've had intentions to play, but they go and they see what they'd be up against, and they'd be like, I just want to enjoy my time here. That's what made that year so special. I mean, those kids played so hard every second of every game. I mean, you could really write a book on all the inspirational stories that come out of community college basketball. And the people that put those athletic events on a night in and night out basis, boy, did they deserve some credit, because, creating a foundation for these athletes to really explore who they are outside the classroom and have a chance to have their families come out to see their friends, play in front of your friends. I mean, that's cool. And that's something in COVID-19 now. We should all look back on the times that, people were there to support us. And one of my hopes for this post-coronavirus is we reach out to those who have supported us. We reach out by way of, actually being there in some ways, being there with them in spirit by extending a thought or sending them a text. And I'm so proud to say that you've always done that. My friends at the Boulders always do it. My family has always done it. But there are people out there today that I'm sure don't really realize the appreciation to do the little things, like get to bounce a basketball or make a shot. And at the community college level, it's appreciated there, because the individual kid goes home and is able to say, I did it. That's what makes community college basketball so great.
Johnny, hold on one second. I'm actually going to interrupt you. Just say the last part one more time, because you actually froze.
Okay. So I froze because I said community college basketball affords the kid the opportunity, regardless of where he or she stands, of all they've been through, to walk out of those doors and say, I did it. And that's the beauty of college basketball in general, but especially community college basketball, because what's the word that's in there? Community. So you get to develop in front of your friends, you get to develop in front of your family, and they get to enjoy seeing you play, and the players get, what they want, which is exposure, confidence, and anything they may need. So that's the beautiful part of this.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And you know what? You see, it's a different type of ball game too. When you go from the JUCO level to the NCAA, obviously it depends on where, on where you are in this country or wherever it may be. Where you may have, a high school, or you may have a JUCO like Rockland Community College, who actually, for those that do not know, Johnny, you guys, it's Sullivan, if I'm not mistaken, which is, I believe, correct. So a part of that jump, for those that, again, do not know, you guys actually got
Joe, you're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit, but I think you asked something about Sullivan, and yes, we are Division II.
Okay.
Joe, I think you asked. You're breaking up, but I think you asked.
Here, Johnny, I'll repeat the question for you. I'll repeat the question. So, Division II, you guys had jumped from Division III to Division II, Section 15. Okay, right. So, Region 15. Now, because you guys are Division II, if I'm not mistaken, you guys got dorms on campus.
Well, that I can't speak to, because I'm not on the business side of it, so I'm not sure about the specifics. We should be getting more information about that post coronavirus. I would think. But one of the things I want to say from a sports perspective, yeah, we did move up, and we had some tough times this year, but you play a different schedule at JUCO Division II now. You're playing a smaller group of opponents while still playing your natural opponents that you would always play. So it's a bigger schedule, and the intention is to give the kids more games, and to give the college the ability, yes, to be able to have dorms. But of course, we have to wait and see how that will all play out post COVID-19.
Right. So, well, that's really good, though, that, again, for those that are just joining us here, just 2 minutes shy of 8:30, 30 minutes into our fantastic interview and our little conversation here with my good friend John Thompson. We can't thank you enough for tuning into episode number 17 of the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series. That's John Thompson. I'm Joey Jarzynka. I really do appreciate you joining us on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. So, John, you graduated from RCC with your associate's degree. Absolutely fantastic. Congratulations again, even though it was last year. But now you go for the next part. And the next part is you go for your bachelor's degree. That is the next part of the life of who John Thompson is. You are going to now St. Thomas Aquinas College, where, for those that are a part of the sports world, they know that it's Division II in the East Coast Conference, better known as the ECC. John Thompson, the journey to St. Thomas Aquinas started where, and how did you get there?
Oh, well, Joe, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you this. It was the toughest decision I had to make, because I, of course, work in local sports, and I have worked here in local sports for years, and I've given, coverage to both schools, Dominican as well as Stack. And if you know anything about the Rockland County area, if you drive a little bit past Stack, Dominican is like right there. And when you are in a small community like that, even though they belong to different conferences, you build relationships. But for me, the relationships that I built, I had to realize that the friendships I built were still going to be there regardless of my choice. But I also knew that my choice was going to come with great personal scrutiny, because we had to make sure that everything was going to be exactly right. So that's why I say it was the toughest personal decision I made. But I always knew that I wanted to continue my education. And to get back to something I said earlier about post-COVID-19, I hope people appreciate the commitments that they make more outside, because I hope they reach out to people regardless of what they may be to them, and show support. because I cannot tell you how supportive, the Stack program and the Dominican program, both of them were during orientation and things like that. These two schools wanted the best for me as a person. They didn't care that I was giving them coverage because I had already, called, both ADs or both associates that I worked with and said, look, I'm going to give you even amount of coverage. So that was really something for me that I wanted to establish early on, that the decision was not going to be based on, the sports or anything like that. So I go on, the both orientations, and both campuses are beautiful. Catholic colleges up here in Rockland County, New York, very steep traditions in sports and in education. And I really took a liking to Stack. I was deciding for 2 years actually before I went public, and I'm glad with the decision I made. And I still, again, I still do hang out at Dominican games, and I still have the same friends that I did before. But it was a big decision, because you're basically in, when you take classes like I do, when you can only take 2 or 3 classes per semester, you're going to be there a while. And with all my physical challenges being taken into account, and as I mentioned, I'm in a wheelchair, there's a lot of logistics, and I was very appreciative. Both colleges had, plans for me from safety to bathroom usage to everything. But when I toured Stack, I liked the fact that I knew so many of the buildings already. But if you think about it this way, what came down to it was one decision. You want to know what it was? It was literally
Let's hear it, Johnny.
It was literally a coin flip kind of decision where I can go, I have to stay home, but I went to Stack because I felt that long term it was going to be better in the long run for me to try to get my degree. It was big enough where I could continue to build on the connections I had, because a lot of the Stack and Dominican people both work at the Rockland, now New York Boulders. So I knew that those connections I already had in the bank. But I also saw an opportunity to, advocate and, join and make lives better for, people with disabilities. So I wanted to make sure that fabric in me was still never lost. And I got, I'm being given the opportunity right now at Stack, but I also do want to take the time to thank Dominican always for how they treat me and continue to treat me. But Stack basketball are in very capable hands. The women are led by head coach Kim Lusk. The men are led by head coach Tobin Anderson. As you mentioned earlier, they are in the ECC. Bridgeport's actually one of our rivals. CSI is going to be joining us after the pandemic. We are the first school to have sprint football in Rockland County, which is huge. And of course, everybody knows
it's a milestone.
Everybody knows the basketball pedigree of both schools, of Dominican and Stack. The men's and women's programs in both parts of the county here are in very good hands under the direction of Joe Clinton Sr. at Dominican, who I didn't mention originally, so I apologize. Bill Diener for the women at Dominican, and of course Coach Lusk and Coach Anderson over at Stack. So everybody knows about the basketball tradition, but also Stack has made its name as quite a Division II national baseball power as well.
Yeah,
and it's unfortunate that they never got to spread their wings with Coach Garvey, because there were some pretty nice expectations for the future. It's a young class that's coming in, but again, Stack baseball is something to keep on the map as well. Not just basketball, but the two schools definitely excel in basketball.
Yeah, not only do they excel in basketball, but mainly for those that know St. Thomas Aquinas, especially for their sports. I don't want to undermine basketball or, understate basketball, but let's be honest here, folks. In the ECC, a lot of the baseball schools are really the ones that are basically shown, the ones that are continuously promoted. New York Tech, Malloy. You also have Stack, St. Thomas Aquinas as well, Bridgeport. All of these schools in the ECC, they are always, on the front burner, if you will. So really, really good stuff there with St. Thomas Aquinas. And also going back to the time when you called a game at Dominican College, Johnny, for Rockland Community College when we had gone up there. That was for Nassau Community College, if I'm not mistaken. I know we're going a little out of order here, if you will. For those that have been watching The Last Dance, they know that going back and forth continuously to get the whole story is, a normality, if you will, with The Last Dance. So we'll make it normal here as well. So we'll go back in time a little bit from St. Thomas Aquinas to Rockland Community College. And Johnny, that night when we were at Dominican College, and they are a Division II school, for those that do not know, we gave you the chance to call a game with Rodney Harris. Both Mike and myself, Mike Slavin and myself, were on the sideline for that. That was pretty cool stuff. We had a 4-man team there.
That was a huge honor. And again, I'm indebted to you guys for giving me the opportunity to do that. When you called me and told me that I was going to do that, as somebody that wants to do play-by-play, and Joe, the most important thing you can get is reps. And you guys stepped aside and gave me a chance to live my dream for a little bit. And I've gotten other chances in other sports, but that was my first foray into actually lead play-by-play for basketball. And it was so nice. It was so nice as well. That game was not originally scheduled to be at Dominican, if you remember. It was snowed out, and the field house, the Eugene Levy Field House, was being used for a home show. So I would probably not have had the opportunity to do that had that game been moved from RCC to Dominican. And it was great to have one of my first occur in front of people that have really seen me grow up, and it was great. I actually got some pictures of that day that I still have, and it was close enough to home where I could make the trip. And it was my first time, as you said, and Rod was great. Of course, you guys were great on the sidelines. And I hope both of those gentlemen are well as well. If they're listening tonight, hope you guys are well.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really good stuff there from you, Johnny. And it's really surreal how you made your way to St. Thomas Aquinas. The journey to the next school, it really is admirable for sure. But now the biggest thing here, John, is your fandom and also your current role that we have promoted insane amounts. And I'm assuming that the New York Boulders are watching this broadcast because we do have I do see it on the back end here that we do have quite a number of people watching this broadcast right now. And the New York Boulders, I keep saying it. I keep thinking Rockland Boulders, but I'm assuming for those that are watching the New York Boulders, they can understand why, because for so many years they've been in the Can-Am League and now the Frontier League. They've been called the Rockland Boulders, but they changed their name. For those that do not know, they became the New York Boulders. Additionally, they also, the Can-Am League was actually merged with the Frontier League to become the Frontier League as a whole. So for those that were in the central part of the United States, or in the Midwest, if you will, and also those that were a part of the Northeast and also a little bit in the Mid-Atlantic region, where the Can-Am League was and now still is, now has become one Frontier League. So, Johnny, I want to know this because Palisades Credit Union Park is still the home of the New York Boulders. Amidst all of this, let's hear about how. Let's hear a positive story, because I know that's what we need in these, in this day and age now. Let's hear about not only how you found them, how you became a fan, how you got in contact with them, or did they get in contact with you in Pomona, New York? Let's hear it, Johnny.
Well, first of all, I want to take this opportunity to just commend all the powers that be for what would be our 10th anniversary season. And a lot of people have asked me, well, you've taken on a state name, being the New York Boulders, and did you kind of ditch the Rockland name? Absolutely not. And to anybody from Rockland who's listening, it's you guys that will always be in our hearts. It's Rockland that the stadium calls its home in terms of soil. And you guys get to be a part of now our team being nationally recognized. The New York Boulders, that's what we are. We are the only team, to my knowledge, now I could be wrong, with a national TV deal with 11 Sports. We are broadcast all over the world. And who would have thought all of that starts and all of that ends in a little town, beautiful town called Pomona, New York, in beautiful Rockland County. So this should be a time of pride for Rocklanders, because we get to show off under the New York name. We get to show off how we've become a national brand. And I'm so honored to always be a part of the organization. I still get chills when I walk in there. But back to your original question, Joe. I was
going to say, hold on. I got to say that. I have to say this. I think after that, and I think if the New York Boulders are watching, I think for any I'm just going to say this. This is a quick opinion piece from me. If you are watching New York Boulders, and for the upper administration watching, give this man all of your commercial work, because he just made the best speech for the New York Boulders that are nationally recognized. And coincidentally, we just had a spike in our viewership. So thank you, New York Boulders, because John Thompson really could be your brand ambassador and also appear on television. That's fantastic. So to answer the question, Johnny, go ahead. I do apologize. I had to throw that out there, because you could also be the mayor of Pomona.
Well, that takes a lot of responsibility, Joe. And I'm not very much. I'm not very much into politics. I'll stick to sports. But so how I found the Boulders, it was actually pretty funny, because I was going to a doctor's appointment back in, I would say May 2010. And, it was a routine checkup. And as you know, from talking off air, Joey, my routine checkups are different than the common person, because a lot of people have to sign off on my condition. So this was the general guy. And there was this big piece of open land. And I remember there had been developments in there, and it had been municipal beforehand. And I was thinking on my own, what on earth could this possibly be? Because there's this big, beautiful piece of empty land. And I'm sitting in the front seat of my mother's car saying to myself, what could this possibly be? And then I looked at my mom and I very discreetly said, wouldn't that be funny if that was a ballpark? Without even knowing that that's what it was. And I go home and I open up the local pages up here in Rockland, and it says baseball coming to Rockland. And I go look at the coordinates, and I had just passed by there. So immediately the dream had begun to work in baseball. And, I never let my limits as a person with a disability get to me, but I'm also realistic that getting down to, Yankee Stadium on a night in, night out basis would take a lot of logistics given, the train schedule and things like that. And believe me, I have amazing friends at Yankee Stadium. So I applied for a job in the inaugural season. If you remember 2010, for those that were not there, we didn't even have the stadium built yet. So we had offices off site. And so January, I guess, of the original season, I was, called by two people who I still owe a debt of gratitude to, Dana Fajermestad, who has recently gotten married, left the organization, and Danielle Del Rosario at the time. She's now Danielle Alvarado. They interviewed me. They saw me on the chair. And my first supervisor was Mr. Dave Schenkel. And my bosses at the time, and one of them is still in there, and I hope he's listening. Sean Riley is now our team president. At the time, he was our executive vice president. And after a couple of years in the organization, I noticed a different place where I could contribute. I started out as the customer service front desk representative, which I loved doing because, in a weird way, it allowed me to be at the epicenter of everything that was going on and see how everything in baseball flows. Take the field of calls, learn how to honor players' ticket requests, learn the importance of time, because for all of you out there that are listening, and time is standing still right now, but when it goes back to normal, the concept of time doesn't always go by the watch. It goes by, if you have a customer standing there, you got to make sure you greet them with smiles and happiness, and you make them feel comfortable, because you want them to, or at least I want to make everybody feel like they're at home in the ballpark, because that's how I feel when I'm in my second home. So I happen to come up with a couple of list of ideas. I mean, we have the most beautiful, and I'm a little biased, of course, we have the most beautiful ballpark. If you've never been up to Pomona, New York, to see this ballpark, I swear, and this goes for you, Joey, too. You got to get up here to see a ball game. I don't care when the season starts. If it starts tomorrow or whenever it does. So I went up to my boss at the time. I said, hey, I'd like to see about having a disability liaison program, not based on any sort of legal thing. Just want to enhance the experience of people with disabilities in the ballpark experience, because you have to realize that no one disability is like another. My limits are physical. Someone else's may be mental, maybe that they can't hear. So you have to respect everything. So while I don't know what it's like to have those other disabilities, I know what it's like to be involved in something as beautiful as the New York Boulders. And they said yes. And since that time, we've instituted the first in the country T-shirt hand. So we do not throw T-shirts to the wheelchair accessible sections because they can't reach. We want to keep the fans safe. So I go behind the fans and I drop the T-shirts over their shoulder, and that's how they catch it. So that's one way we enhance the experience. They have me secure the clubhouse during the game. So if I'm making my rounds during the day and I see maybe a person that would like to have an autograph, our players sign autographs after every game. Of course, this is, pre-COVID. I don't know if it's going to change. I don't know how it will change. Of course, don't quote me on anything, but I would, get the opportunity to walk, wheel around, and, make contact with persons with disabilities. And the beautiful thing was some of them would sit alone and just be looking for somebody to talk to. Others would have questions about the ballpark and be very nervous because they're in a strange place. They're not, they may not be from Rockland. They may be from North Jersey, or they may be from, in your case, Long Island or some other place. I had a woman from London come to see the ballpark once. So it's very important that you really try to cover all the bases, no pun intended. And since the year 2014, which was the year we won the championship, um, I have gotten at least one promotion in every season. And now I do the disability liaison stuff, of course, where I make sure all the people with disabilities are having a good time. And if there's anything that I can do to make them more comfortable, believe me, I do everything in my power to try to do it. Then I go do clubhouse security. I'm a backup in customer service. So if somebody wants to take a break, I answer the phones. I sometimes am up in the press box, and it's just a real honor to have grown so much and really grown up with the organization. I started there when I was 19, and I always ask our president now, Sean Riley. I always say, I mean, I still get those goosebumps, and he always says he always saw something in me, but I always saw something in the Boulders, and that was opportunity and hope. And while some people ask me, it's not a common road for people with disabilities to want to be so out in mainstream. I say to that is, whether your passion is sports, whether your passion is cars, another passion of mine, whether your passion is sales, go find it. And if it makes you feel happy in here, as I point to my head, then you have won your World Series. You've won your Super Bowl. So you know what? When I'm in that ballpark, I'm undefeated just by the fact that I'm there. I have learned some valuable lessons that I've been able to take outside the gates of the ballpark with me. I have had some great success. And yes, I'd be lying if I said there weren't some days where I come home and I say, oh my God, I wish I did that differently. But that's the importance of, going back and watching film on the league website. I will go back. I am fully committed to making sure that every minute I'm at the Boulders, they're getting my heart, soul, and every blood, sweat, and tear that I have. And that's why it is hurting me that I can't welcome in our dear friends, my fellow Boulder fans, our season ticket holders, and the many that I come in contact with, because I get to share a beautiful gift. And that is, no two games are alike. So you don't know if you're being a part of somebody's first time to the Boulders or their 100th time. But my goal is to make it just as special as the day before, because for them, this might be their only game they attend. And you have to make their experience feel like it was theirs and something they can grab onto and hold and take that camera out and take the family photos. And like I said, now we're doing it as the New York Boulders right here in Rockland County.
Yeah, it's wild. And something that I want to bring up too, that you mentioned earlier, Johnny, is that I find it so surreal that you had someone from London, England, make their way to Pomona, New York. And for those that do not know where Pomona, New York is, it is in North Rockland County. And the crazy part is that, I have family or had family that lived in New City, not too far from where you are, Johnny. Excuse me. And, it's wild because you think to yourself, is there really a baseball team that is capable of selling tickets, of having a disability liaison, of having a brand ambassador like you, to have someone that cares about a team so much, and not only that too, but also where careers can be made. You look at the people that you and I know together: Seth Cantor, a professor of mine, Mark Ernay, Jaden Daly, 3 people that you and I know. And I'm sure if you and I actually sat down post-COVID, one day, wherever it may be, your house, my house, wherever, I can guarantee you, if we spit out names, there would be more than just those 3 that we can relate to. and just by looking at what you said, that person from London coming here in such a small town or such a small county, big dreams can be made. Stephen Cardulo being one, first baseman for the Rockies. I believe, Johnny, just correct me if I'm wrong, he made his major league debut last year or the year before?
Everything's close. Sounds the same, but it was the year before last.
So 2018. Okay.
Yeah, Steven was I got a funny story about that, if you don't mind.
Of course, Johnny.
Steven was
the floor is yours.
Steven was purchased by the Colorado Rockies at the end of the 2015 season.
Right.
So for those that know regular baseball and independent baseball, there's really a baseball year doesn't start till spring training. So this fella gets picked up, has to stay, in shape all season, all off season. His father was a big league scout. Guy goes in there, does what he does, does amazing, gets up to AAA Albuquerque within the first year. Walt Weiss is the big league manager, another Rockland native who just happened to know about the Rockland Boulders at the time. And he gets up to Colorado. He's playing the Washington Nationals. People were so excited that he came from our field of dreams. We moved the start of a game from 7 p.m. to 7:30 just so everybody could see his first at bat. And that place was jumping. And you talk about Stephen was the first of many. I mean, Stephen's in a lineage now where it's becoming commonplace. People get purchased in independent ball. And I know you guys have the Atlantic League down there with the Long Island Ducks and everything like that. The fabric of independent baseball is beautiful because the goal is to get these fellas purchased into minor league ball. Everybody says, oh, he got, taken up to the major leagues. No, it's another step on his staircase. So the fact that you're there and I'm there and we're there as fans to see these gentlemen who love the game of baseball and have taken the road less traveled, to think about one, Joe Maloney set a league record, and then got picked up by the Orioles. Jarrett Doc Edmondson, he was the first Boulder in organization history to break a record while wearing a Boulders uniform. His brother Chris Edmondson played on the team. He was picked up by the Braves. The Boulders have always been a hotbed for scouts, and I have to believe it's not just because of the great location we're in suburban New York City. I have to believe it's because of the product that we are putting on the field, and night in and night out, these gentlemen compete. I mean, they compete for every last thing that they get. Stephen also became the first Boulder in Boulder's history to hit a grand slam in the championship series. And then the following season, after Stephen had left, his teammate Junior Rojo did the same thing. And then who did he get picked up by? His hometown team, the Miami Marlins. Yep. So how amazing that these gentlemen who take the road less traveled might have played college ball. And certainly I, look up on baseballreference.com what they do, or I've, traveled in circles with them. But to get to see them actually accomplish their dream in the next and move up the staircase, if you will, is what's the most rewarding for me. And I think all of my colleagues who have the high honor and privilege to work with them, because everybody says, independent baseball, it's not minor league baseball. Independent is a word to me, because independent means these guys did it by themselves with their own heart and own determination, and they're there because they want to play ball. And to see them get to accomplish their dreams is the greatest thing that anybody can be a part of.
Yeah, and you know what? You think sometimes when you think of independent baseball, I know for me out here on Long Island, I think of Rich Hill. And I think of Rich Hill, who, Johnny, you and I had spoken about countless times over our numerous conversations in the past, tens of conversations, 20s, whatever, however many conversations we have. It's more than the fingers can handle.
Very hard to count.
Exactly right. And I know you and I have spoken about Rich Hill, who made his way back to Major League Baseball, but he made his way. He eventually had to go through Long Island here and go through Central Islip and have to go through Bethpage Ballpark and play a couple of seasons, or if I'm not mistaken, a single season with the Long Island Ducks. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, the season following, it was an all-star year for him when he was picked up by the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, you talk about independent baseball, and I look at it this way, and, for those that are watching at, potentially at my current employer at St. Francis, I know that I think it is trademarked, but I will say it anyway. Fingers crossed that there's nothing here, but small college, big dreams is what St. Francis College is considered. But you know what? Independent baseball should be, small league, big dreams, because really it can be. And every single person, in my opinion, such as Steven, such as the other guys that you have brought up here on this program tonight, Johnny, it shows that just because you play in such a small town in Pomona, New York, or in Central Islip, just a few minutes east of me, here on Long Island, those dreams can eventually be met. And also additionally too, and you had brought up earlier, you have cerebral palsy, you have physical ailments, and you were bringing up before how you, with the New York Boulders, you are now the disability liaison. You are the ambassador. You brought things up. And just what little things happen, it becomes a big dream. And it becomes not a job. It becomes what you love to do every single day. And that's what I admire most about you and the work that you have done throughout all of these years, Johnny, not only ever since I've met you, but just in your entire life, that's for sure. So I want to bring this up, Johnny, here. Your good friend, go ahead, say it again.
And one last thing, I know that I've never been to Bethpage Ballpark. It's still a dream of mine to get out there when my schedule allows. I have been to Somerset, but I want to also take time to tip the cap to Long Islanders, as Kevin Baez, who used to be the manager for the Long Island Ducks, is now our manager for the New York Boulders. But also another guy with ties to Long Island, of course, Jamie Keith is the manager in between the two fellas, who is now in the Atlantic League in High Point, North Carolina. Dave LaPointe also had deep connections to Long Island. So Long Island and the Boulders, my Long Island friends, you guys are in our hearts too, because every time we think of Dave or we think of Kevin, we thank you guys. And, as I say, all the three managers bring something unique to the table, and we have been blessed. Every manager has poured his heart and soul into every bit. So, for those of you up in Long Island that got to watch Kevin Baez, feel free to come up to Pomona, New York, and watch him up here in Rockland. I'm telling you, it's a good product and a beautiful stadium.
Absolutely. And for all the Long Island Ducks fans, they have 1986 World Series champion, former New York Met Wally Backman as the skipper now. So we'll see what Kevin Baez and Wally Backman can do. Really, really good stuff. So let's keep moving forward, Johnny. So you have your own YouTube channel, JL Thompson. We'll get to that in just a second. And the reason why I bring this up is because a good friend of yours, and now a good friend of yours, former New York Met Ed Hearn, he actually left a little message for you on YouTube. And I know you're watching, Ed, so thank you very much for joining us here this evening. I personally appreciate it. Everyone at the Blackjack Media Networks appreciates it. And your good friend John Thompson appreciates it. Let me take a read to your quote. So, Johnny, here it is. Quote, "It's pretty obvious the added value John brings to the Boulders, but our entire culture could stand to have a few more good guys like this young man," end quote. Really, really good stuff there from Ed Hearn. And John, you interviewed him on your YouTube channel, JL Thompson. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But you also had New York Yankees reporter, WFAN beat reporter Sweeney Murdy as well, who's also another friend of mine as well. Great man. I want to talk about Ed Hearn and then go into Sweeney Murdy and talk about, let's rewind a bit. How did you get into doing a podcast like channel for yourself, Johnny?
Okay, I basically started it out because, and I'm hoping you'll give me the opportunity to do this. I started out because I felt that I wasn't, as you know, I battle anxiety in addition to the cerebral palsy, which is sometimes more nerve wracking than the physical aspects, because you never know when the anxiety is going to pop up. And during this coronavirus, I said, if there's one thing of service that I can do for people, what would it be? And that was to share my life as a high functioning person with a disability and show that, yes, we can. And I'm working on a lot of different projects right now. And it's taken on a life of its own in a very short time. I mean, the channel has only been live really two months. And look, I've already had a former world champion, 1986, Ed Hearn. And if anybody wants to be inspired, he has words to say about me, obviously, in the quote that our wonderful host, Joey, just read. But if you want to be inspired, I encourage you to go to the JL Thompson YouTube channel and put that on for a few minutes and wait until you see how this gentleman really inspires the world through everything he's done. So that opportunity came to me through a friend that's been to one of my favorite places on earth, Florida. It's like my second favorite state. Of course, I like Tampa because I'm a Yankee fan, but he happens to be a diehard Met fan, and he works down at the Mets fantasy camp in Port St. Lucie, and he attended the help me out here, Joe. I guess they have what they call a fantasy camp kind of thing for like the adults, and you can whatever, and they have coaches. So
yes.
He knows Ed Hearn through that. He called me because I had a question for him about a project that I'm working on that I'll tell you guys about later. And so he goes, hey, that's a good idea, but how would you like to interview a former World Series champion? I said, absolutely. As a, baseball fan and, growing up loving baseball and respecting the game, I'm like, of course, I would do it. And when I looked up who it was, Ed Hearn the person, Ed Hearn the player. Never mind that he won a World Series, because that's a great baseball accomplishment. Never mind that he played on the same team as Gary Carter and all those guys. And
the aforementioned Wally Backman as well. I do apologize. Yes, I did not bring that up, Ed. If you're watching still, I did not put the two together. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
That's why Johnny's your friend. Go ahead.
And absolutely. And also, if you remember, Wally crossed paths with another one of my assistant coaches up here in Rockland when he was in the South Coast League in 2007 with the South Georgia Peanuts. So I have never personally met Wally, but my roads always lead back to Wally Backman. So hopefully one day, Mr. Backman, if you're listening, we get to meet somehow. But when you listen to Mr. Hearn talk, and you hear what he's been through, it was a great relationship to build, not only professionally for my YouTube channel, but also personally. Because as a young person trying to make his way in the baseball business and already doing it with the Boulders, it put the cherry on top of what I hope for my life to be. And, Mr. Hearn has a lot of, places where he could have folded up the tent and is saying, sorry, feel sorry for me. I'm here. He chooses not to do that. He's a motivational speaker. He's got websites. He's got everything going for him, and he's so willing to share stories and impart his wisdom. And his family's great. His wife Trish is amazing. So I am very, very happy to have made a friendship with him through this YouTube channel, and I really am honored that he said yes to the interview, because I always say, without people saying yes, you and I can never make it in this business. And I think you'd agree. The word yes is very hard to come by in this business. And the fact that Mr. Hearn said yes and the Boulders said yes to me, it opens all new doors for me. It really does. It's pretty amazing. And I waited until the end of the interview to inform Mr. Hearn that I was a Yankee fan, because I didn't want anything to be changed in his answers. But what a wonderful man, and somebody I'm looking forward to bonding with more as time goes on. I hope he comes up to a Boulders game. I certainly intend to try to visit him when the logistics allow. But what a great man he was.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that do not know, 1986 New York Met. It was a part of the world champion New York Mets team. They won their second World Series in its history that year. He batted .263 with 4 home runs, 14 RBIs. He ended his playing career just 2 years following his major league debut with the American League's Kansas City Royals. He's from Stuart, Florida. He was a catcher. Excuse me. He was a catcher who came up with the Mets during that team. He batted through right-handed. And also, for those that do not know, Ed Hearn was diagnosed in 1992 with something called focal segmental. All right, this is going to take me a little bit. Glomerulosclerosis. I think that's about right. Something like that. There we go. But we know exactly what it is. And it's something where it's a nephrotic syndrome in children and adolescents. As well, it is a leading cause of kidney failure in adults. At one point, he would immediately undergo a kidney transplant. Excuse me. He was also diagnosed with sleep apnea. He struggled with skin cancer twice. He's also currently a motivational speaker. And he also resides in the middle of the country in Kansas. Really, really good stuff, Johnny Thompson. I just wanted to give the background there with your now good friend, Ed Hearn, also, who is watching. Ed, I really do appreciate you tuning in to see your friend, John Thompson. And I do see that you are acknowledging me and us here on the live chat. So I do appreciate you taking advantage of the live chat. So, Johnny, moving forward. Actually, I do want to ask you this. And Ed, before you do go, I'd love to hear your thought, Ed, if you could actually type that in. You're a Mets. You have a World Series ring with the New York Mets. You also played for the American League Kansas City Royals. And then John Thompson drops a bombshell on you saying that he's a New York Yankees fan. So maybe if you could just type the answer if you're watching or what your thoughts were. John Thompson, I need to ask you this question. When you told him that, what was his initial response, his facial reaction when you told him that?
It's interesting. Mr. Hearn is a wonderful man. And I know he doesn't like when I call him Mr. Hearn, but he deserves that era of respect. I think that kind of respect in today's society has came and went in the wrong way. I mean, I don't think enough people are called sir or ma'am where they should be. He was happy that I'm just a fan of baseball, and he did chuckle. He did chuckle. We had a very funny off-air moment about it, but I do, I know that he loves the fact that I'm a fan of baseball, and just because, I'm a Yankee fan does not mean I can't be one of the biggest fans of Ed Hearn. And that's what I am. And Ed, I know you're listening, my friend. And I know you're a man of great faith and somebody who really wants to pass along the message of faith and hope. You are a true inspiration to all of us for what you go through on a day-to-day basis. Keep up the good work, my friend, and make sure that you keep delivering your message of hope and faith to so many.
Now, I do want to ask you this, because obviously you are a Yankees fan, and your second interview was very big as well. John, let's ask this. Sweeny Murti, WFAN beat reporter for the New York Yankees. You got a chance to interview him. Talk about how he came aboard and how that interview went for you.
Well, it was recently taped. It's up on the JL Thompson YouTube channel. It's actually, if you go through my files, it's actually under a couple of things. But outside of a little technical difficulty we had where where my face was blocked out, but you could still hear my voice. Anyway, beginner's luck when you're trying to do a YouTube channel. It was an honor to interview Mr. Murti. And as somebody who is a Yankee fan, who's grown up listening to Sweeny Murti, chronicle his narrative of the Yankees and, the games that he sees, it was just amazing to speak to Ed and then Mr. Murti, just a couple of days apart, actually. And when I got that call about Sweeny Murti, I kind of said to myself, are you serious? Because it was a different fellow that had approached me about Sweeny Murti. And I kind of said, are you serious? And then I had many pinch yourself moments. And I have a very good group of brand new advisors post anxiety and post my depression. I have a brand new group of advisors outside of family now. And I reached out to one of them in a text, and I'll never forget saying, is this real? That during a pandemic, I could be like, how do I be proud of having so much success? And the text back was, and my mom always says this too, so it concurred with what was said. Just enjoy the moment. Because when the moment slips away is the moment you realize how good it was and you wish you could have rewound back. There is no rewind button. But now as a country, we are on pause, Joey. And I hope that when we come out and we see different things, we admire what the other person has. We realize that we all bleed the same color blood when we get taken for a blood test, and that's red. We realize that we have so much to offer this world, and a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. That's how I look at strangers. A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. And if you listen to the Bon Jovi song "Jersey for Jersey," and it's on my playlist, there's a line in that song, if you can't do what you do what you can. And one of my favorite motivators, and I get chills every time I say this, Herb Brooks said, great moments are born from great opportunity. It's hard to see this now as a great opportunity, but it's a great opportunity to get in touch with friends, to get in touch with family, to figure out who we want to be post COVID-19, how we want to portray ourselves as people, how we will reconcile differences in our heart, and how we will emerge from this together. Because forever, this time and times like these do bring people together in some way. And I encourage everybody out there, whatever your calling may be, find a way to reach a helping hand to somebody else and meet that friend that was a stranger to you. And remember what I said, a stranger is just a friend you have not met yet.
That's wild. A stranger is just a friend that you have not yet met, or met yet. That's some powerful stuff, Johnny. That actually gave me the chills as I'm repeating your words. That is really something. Another quote, admirable from you, because that really is truly a blessing. Now I want to bring up another quote. It's actually a perfect segue, Johnny. And this was something that you said to me the first day that we met back in that cold night, November of 2015.
We got to go.
Fieldhouse.
We got to go back to that freezing cold night.
Oh yeah. Listen, it was a gorgeous day today, but we always have to go back to the freezing cold. That's for sure. And you said this on the Nassau Community College Radio Network back in November of 2015. Quote, never use your disability as an excuse. So you have propelled to be the great John Thompson that you are today. John, look at you. You are interviewing big names. You are here talking with me, and I'm not much, but you're here talking with me. You are breathing. You are going through right now this whole pandemic, which we all are. You are surviving. You are going through leaps and bounds, as you have previously said just a few minutes ago, with your disability. You're going through a lot, and you are overcoming every single obstacle that is being thrown your way. And when you say never use your disability as an excuse, Johnny, and when you told the Nassau Community College Radio Network those exact words, end quote, how has that propelled you today to become the John Thompson that you are?
Well, I think it ever became more relevant in 2019. I really fell on some hard times. Personally, there was a fork in the road, and I could have chosen to ignore it. And then it became something that in my heart of hearts, I could not ignore. I was hiding behind the disability too much. And I decided to come forward and talk about anxiety and depression and forget about, using the disability as a shielding board to excuse some of the ways that I've grown up. And I would like to share with those of you out there who might be listening, who might be battling anxiety and depression in quarantine. You are not alone. There are plenty of people who are battling it. And Joey, I don't like what you said, in your presentation to the question. I'm not much. We are all something. We are all humans. And it brings that quote that I gave you when I had my darkest moments in 2019. I promised never to use my disability to get through it. And with everybody's help, I am well over months clear of it. And this coronavirus time has allowed me to say, yes, I went through it. I was at my lowest point. I'm at the top of the staircase now. I never lost faith I lost faith in my abilities, yes, mentally, but I never lost faith in the ability to find the streetlights on the road. And I found the road, and look at where I am now. And I have nothing but great gratitude for everybody, my mother especially, who's helped me and supported me, and all those people who have, and if you know who I'm talking about, you know who you are, how you've supported me. And let me tell you, anxiety and depression is nothing to worry about. There are too many people we see out there today that don't want to come out about it. It's nothing. It's certainly something that you have to come to grips with. But once you do, it's the most freeing thing you could ever accomplish. And the fact that accepting that it was at the time of 2019 because of my chair, that was a big freeing moment for me, because it allowed me to talk about some of the in a deep way how I do contribute to this world. And it was really a freeing opportunity. So, that quote actually, without knowing anything, really came back in my head as I was going through therapy and, all the other stuff.
Yeah, and you know what, again, another piece of advice that is chilling to me, and I'm assuming to all of the viewers out there right now that have tuned in to the Zoom interview series and have listened to John Thompson, because really what you have done over the years will never go unnoticed, especially with your disability, John, because really a lot of people in your position could have given up, and they could have said, no, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm not going to try. And you have continued to just, in leaps and bounds, you have achieved every single hurdle that or obstacle that has been thrown at you. And that's really what I love most about you, buddy. It really is the truth, because, like I said, you and I, we talk all the time, and it's just, it really is just surreal stuff, especially what your mother has done. Your mother, Margaret, is a fantastic lady. So, just to, thank her as well all the time. I'm at a loss of words, honestly. But
and Joe, hold on a second. I want to say, I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm a sit-down comedian. And for those listening, I have never lost a game of musical chairs. And if musical chairs was an Olympic sport, as long as we're talking sports, I would have a gold medal. Okay, that's it.
Oh my gosh, that's good. That's very good. That's very good. So let's keep laughing. Let's keep it positive, Johnny. You're a Yankees fan. We all know how things are currently going with Major League Baseball. We won't get into that because that could be hours on end, and we want to keep it as positive as possible. Continuing to move forward with your Yankees fandom, Johnny, how did you become a Yankees fan? And not only that, I always see the photos of you at Yankee Stadium. I've seen you post photos of you at Yankee Stadium. But not only that, too, just to rewind all the way back, even though you said that there was no rewind button, here there kind of is a little bit. There is just a little bit. But what you've done with the New York Boulders as well is that you, Johnny, have also made sure that after the season's over, you've also looked ahead to next year. And you've said on your Facebook posts, all right, well, we're 230 days away until opening night. What? What do you mean? Well, the season just ended, And then also even with your Yankees fandom too. But let's not forget, you are just a sports fanatic. You love the Yankees. I think there were a few times you made it. I think it was to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight for college basketball at Madison Square Garden, which I tried to get to you, but I couldn't because we were the elevators were packed and everything like that. And you also, I believe, you made your way at some point to the Big East tournament. There was just your fandom is just so well-rounded, but the biggest one of all, or the Mount Rushmore, if you will, of your fandom is the Rockland Boulders. But then at a close second, or maybe even a first or a tie for first, are the aforementioned New York Yankees.
Absolutely. I love my boys in pinstripes. And Joe, let me just tell you a quick story about the Big East tournament. I went down there on the train by myself. Independently, which was a big deal. Somebody had given me tickets in the last row, standing room only, but I told the person, forget about it. I don't need standing room because I bring my own seat with me. So, for me, standing room is sitting room. So I get, so this is this is a true story. So I get off the train and it's St. Patrick's Day. So there's a fella dressed up as a leprechaun. And he walks in front, like right in front of me, and almost hits into me. And he says to me, "Watch where you're wheeling." And I said to him, "Respectfully, sir, it's a lot easier for you to watch where you're walking than for me to watch where I'm wheeling. So you watch where you're walking and you have a good day. So that was the story of the Big East tournament. The guy almost ran me over, but it wouldn't have been my fault because he was walking and I was wheeling. So that's the disclaimer on that story, folks. But anyway, getting back to my fandom of the New York Yankees and of course the New York Boulders. See, I almost did it.
You see, it happens. It happens. Yeah. And for the New York Boulders that are watching, it happens.
Yes. Now, baseball has always been a love of mine ever since before I could remember. I don't even remember because, my parents are divorced. So I don't even remember how I picked up a love of baseball. But I just remember the soothing pace of the game. And because of my disability, I didn't get to my first baseball game because I was 10 years old, because we didn't know if the noise sensitivity part of my disability would be affected. But our family motto here is "We will try it," and "We will try it" came on a June day in the year 2002, Yankees Red Sox. And I learned my first curse word at the ballpark, but that's not the big thing here. The big thing is that baseball gives me a time to look forward to in the winter, those cold winter days while I'm doing RCC games. If I'm feeling down, if I got to go, to a doctor, I look at my Facebook and I look at the Florida news or whatever, and I say it's a bright, shiny day. And you know what? On top of that, baseball is only a couple days away, and that's the beauty of it all. That really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just lost you for a quick second, Johnny, but I still heard everything you said. Sorry, I do apologize about that, folks. One little technical difficulty on my end there, but yeah, no, it's absolutely wild. You learned your first curse word at Yankee Stadium. I'm surprised you didn't learn a whole dictionary filled with curse words there, Johnny, because it could be a pretty derogatory place there in terms of vocabulary, if you will. That's for sure.
No, everybody has said to me, well, what's your favorite part about going to a ball game? And of course, I get to share moments with friends and with my mom and whatever. But, baseball is everything to me. Baseball is, it's killing me that there's no baseball right now, as I'm sure it's killing all of us out there. It's killing
me too. Yeah.
It's killing me that these multimillionaires are fighting over what to us we would kill to have half of. But you know what? We have to respect everybody's position. These are extenuating circumstances, and that's a chat for another day. We would be on the air till Wednesday if we spoke about that. But baseball for me has always had a special place in my heart because of my vision. And I don't know if you ever know this, and I apologize if I never told you off air. I can see the ball with, baseball and basketball. I don't watch hockey because I get migraine headaches from the game. So I listen to hockey on the radio. When I do, I've never actually been to a live hockey game, but my love of sports really helps build, the rest of my life. I'm like, okay, when it's time to go back to school, it's baseball playoffs, and then it's, football, and, then after football, it's back to training camp. And during football, you get basketball. So sports is a motivation for me to get up in the morning and keep minding my own business and keep learning new tasks and new skills and new tools to better myself. While these ladies and gentlemen, because, women's sports does not get enough credit the way it should, that these athletes are putting their best foot forward, no pun intended, because I'm in the wheelchair. So I put my best wheel forward. But as they're trying to put their best foot forward on a day in, day out basis, I'm trying to put my best wheel forward, and I'm finding different ways to accomplish that piece of the puzzle of life. And that's the beautiful part about sports for me. And that's why I have such a draw and a connection to sports and baseball specifically.
Right. Well, also, sports is supposed to be your escape for things. Now, in today's day and age, sports is unfortunately slowly, drifting into into the political side. It's drifting. There's simply a lot of um, things going on. We won't elaborate on that, but basically, what it comes down to is that you really can't appreciate, you really can't appreciate something until it's gone. And the craziest part, Johnny, is that we are going on almost 3 months without a live sporting event that does not include your four major sports here in this country. Obviously, NASCAR is back. UFC has really not left. WWE is still going on. For those that are watching now, Essential Wrestling Podcast, Tyler Riddell, Al Carl, that's one of our shows on the Eastern Observer tomorrow. You could definitely take a peek at that. But no disclaimer. Seriously, though, in all honesty, sports is an escape, and that's another reason why I work in it. I wake up every single day, Johnny, and I'm sure you do too, with that motivation and with the purpose, because sports is that escape from real life, and especially from real life issues. It's very difficult to not only deal with them, especially now when there's nothing here. And really we have to deal with the real world, or first world problem or real world problem. It's so difficult, especially when your Rockland Boulders are not here. Even the Long Island Ducks are not that far, like I said, they're not that far away from me. And just like how you grew up, or not even grew up, but the last 10 years or so, or 6 years of your life, 6-7 years, you said 2013, 14 was the Boulders, was when you started there, just to confirm? 2011, right? So yes, so it was the year following their inaugural season. But you think to yourself, you've been there the last 9 years. You started at age 19 years old. For me, I've been at 100, I think probably almost 200 New York Islanders games, because it's so close, which is another reason why hockey is my number one. And I get it. You listen to it on the radio. You enjoy baseball because it's right in your own backyard, So that really is big. I do have a question, though.
And it's hard to believe when the next Boulder season starts, whenever we get the clearance to go, whenever I work again, it's hard to believe it will be my 10th season with the Rockland Boulders. And I have been there for every pitch and every player that has gone through there. That's a pretty steep mountain to climb. From 2011, I'm honored to have had the chance to be along for the ride, because we didn't compete in 2010. We were established in 2010, but we started competing in 2011, actually on the field, but we were established in 2010.
All right. So with that being said, then, Johnny Thompson, is that you've seen basically every single home game. You've seen every single game. That's for sure. That really is something, memorable, honorable, even to be at all these games. Again, as John Thompson has said, quote, never use your disability as an excuse, because you could literally go to every single Rockland Boulders game and never miss a pitch. Literally. We were just speaking about female sports. I do have a question, actually, from my girlfriend, Gina, who is watching you, Johnny. And,
oh my gosh. How's Gina doing? And please tell her hello.
She is good. Well, you could tell her hello yourself. She is watching here, and she does have a question for you. And for those that are watching, please do not leave. I do promise you that I will not be talking about my girlfriend the whole time, because she is not she's not the interviewee. It is John Thompson, but she did have one question for John, and that was, quote, who is your favorite female athlete?
Oh, that's gotta be a tough one. She's got to narrow it down a little better, because you have to remember, I've seen a lot in baseball, basketball. I'm gonna have to say Sanaya Chung from Ossining High School, UConn. I had a chance to see Shania play. She was under the direction of Dan Rickey, and then went on to the WNBA. I mean, so many athletes have distinguished themselves. It's hard to just pin one, but we have been privileged here to see so many great high school athletes, and certainly, Gina, thank you for the question, and hello. And it was very, very nice to see you both when you came up here last summer for my graduation. But yeah, I mean, there's so many great female athletes, but definitely if you're talking locally, Shania has to be one of them. For Olympics, it's probably got to be Missy Franklin, because I enjoy the swimming. I do pool therapy. And I don't really have anything else to say other than women's sports do not get enough credit because, for whatever reason. But, I would have to say my favorite all-time WNBA player, Teresa Witherspoon, somebody I actually got the chance to meet and somebody I'm actually friends with. Teresa Witherspoon definitely takes the top in the WNBA there. So
that's pretty good. And actually she's texting me right now saying that that we should definitely tweet at her and tweet this little clip. So to Missy, hey, how are you? We're going to tweet this clip out and hopefully we can get a response from you. So we'll end that clip right there. So ladies and gentlemen, for those that are continuing to watch us here on the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series, it is 15 minutes till 10 p.m. I really do appreciate it, as does John Thompson. We'll be done in the next few minutes, but we do want to continue the conversation with our main man, John Thompson. For those, again, that are tuning in here for the first time right now, the Eastern Observer, the Blackjack Media Networks, and the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series, we thank you. I'm Joey Jarzynka. That's John Thompson. Let's keep it rolling. John, we're almost done here. So I'm going to ask you this. This is probably the biggest question of the night, because we've gone through this for 17 episodes. And we've gotten multiple answers. And for my other project, for my current job at St. Francis College behind the Terriers, I have incorporated an ice cream poll. And I've done it with the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series and on Behind the Terriers. Why? Because of so many negative things going on in the world, we need something positive to look forward to. And not only the positivity, but we need to have a good, cold, non-alcoholic beverage, food, refreshment, whatever it may be. And I think ice cream would be the perfect thing. So I agree. I will give you a rundown of what everyone has said that they've enjoyed. So I will give you the first few. So Fairleigh Dickinson's right fielder Ross Mertz says vanilla is his. Let's see who else. We have FA Euro executive director Marco Balsamo is cake batter. I don't know about that. And I told him, I was like, ew, I don't know what that is. That is from Cold Stone and Carvel, for those that are listening. WSJU's own Brendan Myers, cookies and cream. Anthony Tornatore, cookie dough. We'll keep going down the list. Former NFL wide receiver Cecil Shorts, cookie dough and strawberry. Kansas City Royals pitching prospect Alex Katz, vanilla with rainbow sprinkles. And finally, Jaden Daly, Jaden Daly, of course, is coffee flavored. And finally, NBC Sports California, San Jose Sharks color analyst and former Carolina Hurricanes defenseman, Stanley Cup champion Brett Hedican, Americone from Ben & Jerry's. And what is in those ingredients, or what is in that ice cream? Vanilla ice cream with fudge-covered waffle cone pieces and a caramel swirl, directly from Ben & Jerry's website. John Thompson, I am going to ask you this question. What is your favorite ice cream?
Without a doubt, vanilla with sprinkles, depending on the day, cup or a cone. But also you missed out on one of my other favorite desserts, and I'm a little surprised. Cannolis. I love. There's nothing like a good ice cream, of course. So that's vanilla. But I'm also saying, in terms of desserts, there's nothing like a good cannoli. And that I have ties to Brooklyn, and I have access to restaurants up here in Rockland. We have some very good cannolis up here. So if anybody's listening out there, I am a big fan of the cannolis for dessert. So thank you all very much for that.
That is pretty good. So we got a vanilla cup, and then we also have cannolis as well. Now I'm going to ask you this, complete disclaimer here. From where? Carvel, are we talking?
Well, there's a cup that with the vanilla ice cream. I mean, I'll take it from anywhere. I'm not that picky. I mean, I like things very plain. So as long as it tastes like vanilla, I'm gonna eat it.
Oh man, you see, that's another reason why. You and I get along so well, because I know Gina's listening, and I am the biggest pain because the only thing I eat is a small vanilla cup from Carvel. That's it. I don't do anything else. I don't go anywhere else. That's it. It's the plain vanilla cup. So listen, John Thompson, I have to ask you this, and let's do what we call a rapid fire answer, because this is the hardest thing that we have to go through right now. We hear lots of stories about baseball. We hear about stories with the prorated contracts. We hear about a potential 70 to 80 game season. We've heard originally 114 game season. We don't know what the deal is. Again, rapid fire answer. Do you think baseball will be back this year? And I'm talking Major League Baseball.
It's hard to say. And by the way, Joe, if any of your viewers have questions, I would be happy to take them now, or you can certainly post them to me on my JL Thompson YouTube channel. And there's one other project I want to tell you about. But to get back to your simple question, is flip a coin, because 1 minute you hear that they will have a season, but then you worry about the logistics. I mean, and starting to learn about baseball at the small level that I am, seeing how much logistics goes into it. The answer is I would need to know before I made a decision. I would need to know what the exact final date that they could play is. And by that, I mean, I don't understand why they still have to do spring training. The one thing I will say, I don't think spring training at this point, a second spring training, would be that essential. And I would hope that you let me sit on my soapbox for a little bit. You can't tell me that these world-renowned athletes have not been working out in some way, shape, or form. So I would say, yes, we are going to get a season. How, I don't know. And unfortunately, I think it might be with either a reduced number of fans, and I hope I'm wrong. It might be with a reduced number of fans, or it might be with no fans at all. But I think, as we're seeing with the Korean baseball, I think people are gaining an appreciation for the experience of a televised game, and I think that is broadening our horizons. And I think it can only make the game better. And remember, they have a CBA they have to negotiate through in 2021. So my answer for this season, I think there will be baseball in some way, shape, or form once they get logistics, started out, hammered out. Like, where are we going to do spring training? Where are we going to do this? How are we going to transport the players? Because player transportation is a big thing. At the level that I work at in independent ball, these guys take buses the morning of the first game of a series. So you've got these guys that leave for Canada from Rockland, which is about an 8-hour drive, never mind the border stuff. And you're putting these guys on buses, and they got to go play a game that day. So, for the MLB players, I would imagine it's a transition, from the traditional, but I think we all have to, roll with the world now, because at least for the next foreseeable future, things are going to really, really be different. But I think it's all going to be for the better, because I think we're going to be a better and stronger society for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one final question, John. You were just talking about your own YouTube channel, JL Thompson, and you were also speaking about the upcoming projects I believe that you said that you had coming up as well. Let's hear a little bit of a preview here on the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series.
Well, my main project now was this. So obviously it was a great honor to be with you, and always good to be talking or seeing you in whatever way, shape, or form. Of course, I'm trying to keep myself healthy, but I'm also working on a project, hopefully, to get a wheelchair accessible train station in my town. Now there's one the next town over with a ramp, but if you know anything about the proximity to from the train station to my house, it's very close. And as much as it's one town over, it certainly would be more convenient to have a modernized way to maneuver into the greatest city in the world, New York, and have the opportunity. So I'm working with people to hopefully make that happen. If it is going to take some time. We do have. I mean, I don't know what's involved, and I want to thank everybody who's loan their expertise to me and to the team that I have working on this. And the team is only me and one other person, but I want to thank everybody who's taken this time to loan their expertise and give suggestions. And one thing I hope that people take away from that is being a person with a disability is limiting by nature, because we always have to worry about, is it going to be wheelchair accessible? And then when you look at somebody with a disability, Joe, and we talked about off air, some of the questions I get, I mean, the disability, when people see me roll into a room, sometimes I get a look like they saw a ghost. I'm like, hey, it's not Halloween. It's just a wheelchair, and, but I always say the worst question not to ask a person with a disability is no question at all. Because everybody says to me, I don't want to say the wrong thing. You know what you're doing? By not saying anything, you've said the wrong thing, because you haven't opened your heart. You haven't opened your mind. You haven't opened the other person's heart. You haven't given us confidence. There's so much that the outside world can do to help. And the world and the attitude towards people with disabilities is changing. And I'm so proud of all the people that tell me, I don't park in handicapped parking spots because I think of you. Or, I only use that when I have an elder person with me. I feel like the best question for anybody with a disability is any question at all, because the worst thing you could do is remain silent and remain inside yourself, afraid of what that person with the disability, their limitations might be, afraid that you might hurt their feelings. You're not going to hurt our feelings if you come straight up to us and just ask, how do you feel about this? So my whole thing, and how I hope people remember me by this interview, and I hope people will remember this night that we are together, because I've enjoyed my time with your listeners. I hope people come away inspired. I hope people know, and I hope people will reach out to me and know that there are things that they can do to better the lives of so many. And the train station is a microcosm of what I'm working on. I'm trying to do, motivational speaking. I'm trying to, possibly, if, I'm afforded the opportunity, with health and everything else, try to get back to, Yankee spring training in Tampa next year. Of course, I want to get back to work, but for the things that I have control over, I'm just working on trying to, better myself so that when we come out of COVID, I can continue with the YouTube channel. I'm trying to make it so that YouTube is an open forum and a tool for me to not only share my experiences as a person with a disability and, My disability is not like a person sitting next to me. You know, my disability has certain specifications. Other disabilities have other specifications. So that there's kind of like a code amongst people with disabilities. You always respect that code, like one doctor to another, or one person with a disability to another. You always respect the struggle that they might have gone through, and you respect the boundaries. But we're always so proud of the people that come forward and ask. So ask questions. Do not be afraid of what we may say, because we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you thought. I mean, and no, my disability is not a disease you can get if you touch the same elevator button as me. My disability is not something I go home and cry about every day. It's something that I consider a blessing, because I get to meet people and I get to see different sides of people every single day. And that's what I'm blessed for.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can catch everything for John Thompson on his YouTube channel, JL, by searching JL Thompson. He has the on-demand video of 1986 former New York Met World Series champion Ed Hearn on there, as well as New York Yankees WFAN beat reporter Sweeney Murdy on there as well. John Thompson, Johnny, I love you, brother. I'm really happy that I got to speak with you tonight in interview/conversation form. And I really hope that you enjoyed your time here on the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series, because I know I did.
I certainly did. And I'm assuming there's no questions right now, but if anybody thinks of any questions whatsoever about the disability or anything we discussed tonight, there's a lot that Joe and I covered. This will be posted on my YouTube channel. I hope you'll send me a copy. So let's start the conversation. And I want to thank everybody for taking their time out of their Monday night to spend a little time with Joe as he interviews me. I want to take another time to thank our first responders for their service. The doctors and nurses working on the front lines, some of which I know, but for those of you that are out there that I don't know, you really have a special gift. So thank you, Joey, for letting me have this evening with you and your viewers, and I hope everything continues to go well for everyone.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So just closing credits here, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow night on the Eastern Observer, the Essential Wrestling Podcast episode number 5 will take place right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. Join my co-host Tyler Riddell and his cohort Al Carl, the sheriff and the deputy, as they call it. Episode number 5 will come to you live tomorrow night, June 2nd at 6 p.m. right here on the YouTube channel of the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. Also, on Thursday night, we will be welcoming the 3rd minor league baseball female play-by-play broadcaster ever, and the first in the 80-year history of the Class A, Single A California League for the Arizona Diamondbacks, Jill Guerin. She currently is the play-by-play female broadcaster for the Visalia Rawhide, who won the 2019 championship last year in the California League. She will join us on Thursday night, June 4th, starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, folks, concluding the week on Saturday, we will be welcoming Blue Line Deli and Bagels owner Donald Rosner. And for those that want to know about Blue Line Deli and Bagels, please take a peek at our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Twitter. He is a diehard New York Islanders fan who has his entire deli not too far from here, about a mile from where I am right now. And that is where, about 2 miles, actually, 2 miles, if my math is right. And that is where he has welcomed multiple Long Island legends, New York Islanders legends, and also multiple media members. Ladies and gentlemen, for one more time, that's John Thompson. I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks, we'll see you next time.